Alright, so in this video we're taking a look at another FPV RTF kit from ATOMRC. This is the AUK. So we get a 4-inch drone this time, and some goggles and a controller. So let me just show you really quick what they look like. So this is the transmitter. It's the Radiomaster T8 Lite. And I did a review on the original T8 and the T8 Pro. This one is sort of a simpler version of those radios. I am going to do a formal review on this radio a little bit later, but the manual that's included does go over all the switches for arming. All that, we'll cover that here in a moment. But yeah, it's a pretty basic radio, but it will work and has pretty decent range. I think up to 1 kilometer or 1,000 meters. So these are the SkyZone Cobra SD goggles. I did a review on the higher end version of these, the Cobra X. The other RTF kit from ATOMRC, the Seagull, comes with the Cobra Lite. I think these are also the Cobra Lite. I think they just changed the name. Basically, it's another sort of simpler, lower end version of their Cobra X goggles. And you can wear these with your glasses. I did a full review on the Cobra goggles as well. I will link that in the video description. But yeah, this is a pretty decent goggle. It does have the steady view diversity receiver as well. They do include the 18650 battery. There's a little plastic piece you have to pull out to basically enable the battery. It does charge via USB-C here, but that USB-C cable is not included. I'm assuming most people have USB-C charging cables with their phones. That's probably what you're going to use with this one to charge up this battery. Because it's an RTF kit, they kind of don't want you to plug these into Betaflight, which is kind of the whole point of these kits, is so you don't have to do that. For those of you that don't like Betaflight, don't want to plug in your drone into your computer to configure it, all that, these kind of RTF kits are for you. They're pre-configured out of the box and ready to go. And in fact, I know that I've heard several horror stories from some beginners, first-timers that grab one of these drones. They don't realize they're ready to go, even though it says ready to fly on the box. And they're in a rush to flash new firmware onto the flight controller, and before long they have a very expensive paperweight that doesn't do anything. And sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, you don't have a lot of experience, and you go around flashing firmware onto things and not realizing what you're doing, and not knowing how to reverse that process, you will very quickly discover that the expensive drone you just bought and everything that goes with it doesn't work anymore. So I don't recommend taking any of these RTF kits and trying to quote-unquote improve them, because you're more likely to mess things up if you really don't know what you're doing. But yeah, this is a pretty nice drone. 2004 motors in this, 2700 kV, 4-inch gem fan propellers. It's got a 30 amp all-in-one flight controller board on there, an F4. Got a Foxeer FPV camera. The frame here, I think it's 196 millimeters motor to motor. It's an a single bottom plate here. So if you do crash, you will have to replace these parts. I think these replacement parts will be available at some point. Not currently, but if I find them, I will link them in the video description later. Usually they come a few months after the product's been released, but it's an interesting frame. Like, basically it comes with like this top shell that houses all of the electronics, the video transmitter, which by the way goes from 25 to 500 milliwatts. And again, basically have a shell piece here for the top part of the arm that covers the arm and then the motor wire. And then you have a shell piece for the top that covers basically the whole drone and also holds the battery. This one does come with GPS that is attached to the battery strap, which is clever here. The wires go through this part of the battery strap, and then this goes on top of the battery. Does have GPS rescue, which is kind of unusual for a drone of this class. These foam feet are included, but you do have to install them yourself. Not a big deal, but it's a nice looking drone. It's just that I think that you know, it's a little bit of a departure from your traditional build it yourself type of drone. Now the other thing with the goggles is you do have to install the head strap and the antennas, just screw those on, and also the face padding here. You do have to install the Velcro for that, these 3 pieces, and that is it for in terms of installation. You do get this ATOMRC branded charger. I'm not sure who makes this. It's HTRC. It's a pretty basic charger. It does 2S, 3S, and 4S batteries. And there's a power cord inside here. You do get a 4S 850 tattoo battery that goes on top of the drone, and it comes with an XD60 connector. You get some extra foam pieces for the goggles if you need to adjust that. Get some Allen keys and some spare screws for the drone, and of course a spare set of props in case you break any of your props. You get all of these extra cables that come with the goggles are for the obviously input output. Oh, and this does come with the USB-C cable. I didn't see that before. So this is the USB-C cable that does come with the goggles, so you can charge them. But again, I don't recommend plugging in the drone and messing around with your Betaflight settings, because it is ready to go out of the box. In fact, I have not touched this at all with the computer. I didn't actually turn on the stuff. It does bind up automatically, so there's really nothing you need to do. You just basically have to charge up the battery with the included charger. The controller, pretty easy to turn on. Just long press the power button here. Get some lights. And you see it's turned on, and then when you power on the drone, it'll automatically be connected. You want the switches here to be pointed away from you, otherwise it won't arm, and then you want the throttle to be down, otherwise the transmitter will not complete its boot up process. The power button on the goggles is right over here. You just long press that, and that will turn on the goggles, and when you power on the drone, you'll automatically get video. There's no channel scanning or anything like that you have to do. It should just automatically be ready to go and ready to fly. As I mentioned, you do get this manual here, so it does cover the different switches, which I'm going to actually show you really quickly. Alright, so going through the manual, I discovered an error in my manual. It might be because I have an early version of the manual and it does not match what the drone does. I was doing some little testing here on the bench to see what the switches would do. And it turns out that, this is like the way you're looking at it. This switch here, it's on the, especially switch C, it's for arming. That is correct, but this is 3-position switch. So the first click puts it into angle mode, and then the second click all the way up puts it into air mode or acro mode. So that's arming. The GPS rescue switch is actually this one here, and that's how I discovered there was an error, because there has to be, I mean, it has GPS, it has to have a GPS rescue switch, and that's this one here. This is switch A. It's a 2-position switch here. This switch here, switch B, is for the turtle mode, and in the middle position it doesn't do anything because it's a 3-position switch. You have to push it all the way up, and that will put it into turtle mode. And then this switch over here, D, this 2-position switch, is for the beepers. So that's how mine is set up. Hopefully they'll update the manual, at least so that it'll match whatever's in the drone. They may have made some changes to the switches in the final version, so I would recommend you double check all the switches on the ground and see what they do. This is what I did, and if they don't match up with the manual, then you'll probably need to reach out to them to get some help as to what does what before you actually fly it, so you don't accidentally put it into GPS rescue mode inadvertently and when you don't want to, because if you don't have a lock and you put it into rescue mode, it may just fly off somewhere. I'm imagining that it probably has some sort of probably needs to lock at least 6 satellites before you can take off, which I'm assuming. I haven't checked, and I haven't plugged this into the computer yet, so I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, that would be pretty important to have. So that's how mine's set up, but you should double check yours to make sure that yours is set up and matches whatever it says in the manual. If it doesn't, then you're gonna have to double check that on the ground and make sure that you know what the switches are doing. Okay, so that's pretty much it in terms of, the drone itself. Go ahead and take it out for flights and see how it performs. Alright, so I'm going to start off in angle mode, and it's really windy right now. It got a lock pretty quickly, less than a minute, so that's pretty good. Not going to be doing anything too crazy. And as usual, stability mode is not my favorite mode to fly, angle mode. For a beginner, it can get you started, but it becomes kind of a crutch, and it's going to hinder your progress later. So I would recommend taking this controller and find a simulator like Liftoff. There's a lot of them out there, like around 20 bucks or less, and learn how to fly acro mode. Because you can't do flips or rolls, you can just do that. In angle mode, it will feel like it's more stable, but it's not really great for flying. I'm going to flip this into acro mode. Let's see how this tune looks. The rates are really low, so they have not designed this for freestyle. It looks like this is mainly like a cruiser, explorer type drone. That's probably why it has GPS rescue. And it waited for me to have 6 satellites before it would let me arm. And now it has 11 satellites. There's a camera mount option that I saw in one of the product pages, but it wasn't included in my sample, so maybe in the final version that customers get will have that. It looks like there's a spot to mount that, but yeah, it's like a GoPro style mount, so you could probably put like an Insta 360 Go 2 on there if you want. Yeah, if you want to get some HD footage. But as expected, this is not a whole lot of power. And not that noisy either. I can hear it a little bit, but it's nothing like a 5-inch or Cinewhoop. You could probably hear all the street noise and everything over the sound of the propellers. But yeah, not really going to be doing any acro with this one. You can probably change the tune and the rates and everything to do that if you really wanted to. But that's a subject for a totally different video. So I am running the battery, came with the stock Forest 850. So I'm at 3.7 volts. Looks like I've been flying for about 3.5 minutes almost. Tune seems fine, it's doing fine, especially considering how windy it is. It's not really shaking too much. And the rates are nice and slow. They're very... lots of really noisy cars here on the street today. But the rates are very low, so you can get nice smooth footage if you end up putting a HD camera on here. I'm not really sure if this is going to be the best choice for the first drone if you're just getting FPV. Because this one, if you crash it, it's going to be interesting to repair. And there are no spare parts currently, but there will be later. Probably something like a whoop or something would be better. What you could do is, if you really like this quad and you want to get this set up with the goggles and the controller, you can buy a bind and fly tiny whoop or some sort of a whoop. If you want some suggestions, let me know in the comments. Maybe like the Mobula 6 or the Vita 65. And then just get the ones that'll bind to D8 receivers, which is what this controller is, D8, D16. Almost all the whoops are available in that, and you can start off with that, although I would still recommend starting off in a simulator first, and then move up to the whoop, and then you can move up to this, and just fly in a nice open area like I'm flying here, maybe less concrete, like a soccer field or something. So if you do crash, you're less likely to break something, and don't fly with a camera at first either. That would be my recommendation. But the goggles and the controller, they can be used with all kinds of other FPV drones out there that are bind and fly. So definitely can use other drones on this if you want to. Yeah, so still at 3.6 volts, about 14.5 volts for the whole pack. Yeah, this is basically the way the rates are set up. While you can do some flippy floppies like this, it's really slow, So this is mainly for just cruising around, which is why I'm flying it like this, which is, they're probably targeting newer pilots. Maybe you've bought like a Beta FPV beginner kit or an Emacs beginner kit, and you want to move up to something a little bit better, then yeah, this is a pretty good second kit, and these goggles and this controller can definitely be used on other bind and fly drones. Anyway, it's been about 6.5 minutes on this flight. Yeah, this is a very efficient setup. So if you're looking for long flight times, definitely this one fits the bill in that case. Seven minutes of flight time, 3.5 volts per cell, about 14.3 volts. So I'm going to go ahead and end the flight here. And yeah, this is, I think they did a good job with the tune and everything. They've obviously targeting cruisers and explorers. This is going to be for exploring. It does have GPS rescue in case you lose signal. So all good things. Let me know what you guys think.